I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Memorial Day. We celebrate Memorial Day every year on the last day of May. The reason why we celebrate Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, is a remembrance for those who have served our country. The actual birthplace of Memorial Day is Waterloo, New York, declared by President Lyndon B. Johnson in May 1966. Federal Memorial Day, established in 1888, allows Civil War veterans to honor their fallen comrades. By the early 20th century, Memorial Day was an occasion for more general expressions of memory as people visited their graves of their deceased relatives in church cemeteries. Memorial Day is not only to honor those Americans from the armed forces, but also a day of personal remembrance. Today, it has become a long weekend devoted to family gatherings, fireworks, trips to the beach, and national media events. This holiday is important to me because I had family members in the armed forces as well. This is a day that we can all take the opportunity to thank all our veterans and remember all those who gave their lives so that we have the freedom that we have today in our United States of America. Thank you.
We'd like for his grandfather to stand up, please, and recognize and thank you for sending him to Lorain City Schools and parents as well. And Julian, on behalf of the superintendent and board members of Lorain City Schools, we'll give you a certificate and tell you thank you as well. Thank you. Okay. Turn it back over to Mr. Williams. Thank you.
This time for the recognition of visitors, I believe we have an update on the high school project.
Last time, we explained the different phases of design, phases of construction. And let me just tell you about that so I can update you where we are today. The very first step was the POR, the program of requirements. We had completed that at the last phase. We had made our way through the next phase, which is called schematic design. And that's where we first conceptualized the building. And that's what we showed you in the auditorium with the renderings and the fly-throughs and so on. This is the next phase, and this is a very important phase. This is called design development. Design development is where we first apply a really hardline estimate to the job, so we see whether we're in budget, which is always an important deal. We also can adjust and make sure that we redesign to make sure that we're within the budget. So this is often a nervous time for architects too, because we may not be able to give you what we showed you in the beginning. So but that's why we do this. There's several phases of checks and balances and so on. The phase that we're about to enter into is called construction documents. That's where we receive approval from the Board of Education to move forward to the next phase to create the bidding documents for which we can put on the street, go out to bid to build the school. So that said, first I'm going to show you a couple of 3 quick renderings from last time. We all remember these. You've seen them in the hallways, in the papers, and so on. We're proud of this design. The second one, in front of the school. And by the way, this one's looking at the rear entry into the cafeteria. Right over here, this is a 3-story academic wing, and next to that is the wing where you would enter the auditorium from the backside. Front of the school. There we go. Yeah, that's better. And that was the inside of the auditorium. So now it's where we deliver the news that it's all good news. Not only are we on budget, but we're on schedule. The nice thing is that we're going to do updated renderings to show you we don't need to. Everything we showed you in the beginning is what you're getting in the building. So it's all good news, and we're excited. What I'm going to do is turn it over to Jeff, our lead designer. He's going to go through the site plan. What we are going to show you from here on out is a little bit updated information as far as the type of space, and we get to really hone in on, before we could tell you where the cafeteria was, now we can tell you how big it is, how many kids will sit in there, and so on, capacities and stuff. So we're going to do that in a second.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Henderson. And this is actually the current site plan that we have now as it's developed over the course of the last several months. And, Ashland is along the east side here, 24th, Pole Avenue, kind of give you an orientation. Charleston Center obviously is right here where we're at. And, the site really, as we've had before, the building organizes itself into three buildings, we'll call it, three segments of the building. Building A, the north building here, is where the student dining, as Chris mentioned in that one rendering, we have student dining, the gymnasium, and all the athletic facilities are in the middle of that space. And then the administration, the main administration for the building is on this end, which sort of makes that the front entrance. We also have, there also is administrative areas that are spread out through the building as well. In the academic wing, we have, there's a assistant principal area and staff that are located on each of the floors. And again, this area in the middle is a 3-story, and that's all the academic classrooms that are located in here. But it's linked to the north building, to the building A, with these corridors that come across. And second floor on this one is, there's the media center. Primarily it's the media center. The rest of this is 2-story space, taller spaces, the student dining and the gymnasium, but there's a second floor in the front, which is the media center. Building C down here is a combination of the career tech area, so everything in sort of that gold color is the career tech spaces. These two large spaces are the auto labs that work off of there. Then from this area to the west, we have the music wing, which is in here, and then the auditorium. Again, the auditorium is a 800-seat auditorium, single level. There's not a balcony there, but a full stage and a fly gallery. So it's a tall, the stage has got a tall, allows you to fly scenery and things above that. That's in this location here. And actually next to that then is our building construction lab, which intentionally is next to the stage of the auditorium to allow for construction of scenery and then movement onto the stage very easily. So that was something that the district was looking to do. Parking, we've got parking along all 4 sides. It's about 700 spaces total. Principally in the front, visitor and staff parking along Ashland. Buses, there's a space for 26 buses in this plan along here, so the buses would enter the site off Utica on here and then line up in that location and then exit the site on, I guess that's 26. That runs down the middle, and that's the one that runs over to the stadium. Parking along the south side, staff, as well as career tech area. And then on the west side, we have the 2 large parking spaces for both students and staff. But what this allows is a lot of the students can park here, and they enter the building then directly into the student dining where they would go, prior to going out to class first thing in the morning. So the large parking area allows for all the students and quick access then into the student dining. But then after, for sporting events or for the theater, any events that happen on weekends or after school, this parking obviously allows for all of that as well. So it would double serve as student during the day and the public parking in the evenings for events. And again, close access entrance to the auditorium is here, so parking and access to there is very convenient for people coming to there. Then the perimeter, the rest of the perimeter, softball field and other practice fields that are take up the rest of the site. Oh, bike path. Yeah, there's a bike path that connects basically from the west side, goes through, and then connects out on the east side. So there'll be a bike path, and we'll have bike racks that'll be located near the front entrance. But it's something that connects all the way through the site from one side to the other.
Jeff,
Yes.
Is there not also a public restaurant?
Yes.
Where would that be located?
Part of the culinary career tech is a restaurant which is located in this location. So it's right adjacent, because I didn't talk, the main kitchen is right here, next to the student dining. Deliveries and everything would happen right off of that, so it's directly into there. But adjacent to that is where the culinary kitchen is. So the career tech lab there, but they also have a restaurant. So anybody coming in also, they have sort of their own entrance right there. They would come into that restaurant space. So they're not like going to the school or through the school, but they sort of have their own front door, their own, so people feel like they're going to a restaurant. So that entrance there serves that purpose. And there's parking that's located in this location or here that would access those areas. So.
The auxiliary gym is just to the north of the main gym?
Yes, the main gym is this location here. It's about 16,000 square feet, the main gym, and we'll seat about 2,000 spectators. Right adjacent to that is the auxiliary gym, so they're connected together. And they actually have a movable wall, a tall movable wall that opens up between the gyms. So you could get all that opening, 23,000 square feet of gym space in one space.
Is there any seating for people in the auxiliary gym, or is it?
There is seating in the auxiliary gym, yeah. There's about 2,000 in the main gym, and I think here it's about 500. And these are all 94-foot courts, so the basketball courts are 94 by 50. The main court is 94 by 50, and each of the cross courts, so there'll be 3 cross courts, 2 in the main gym, 1 in the auxiliary gym, which are also 50 by 94. So they're very large, they're large.
I guess the point of that is a point of reference. Most high school courts that you see are 84 feet. So the 94 foot is what they mandate you play state tournament play on. So being able to practice on that kind of floor is kind of a big deal when you do basketball. So to have, when that wall moves aside and you have 3 of those floors side by side, it'll be the largest gymnasium by far in Lorain County, and it's the biggest one I know of.
Right. There's also, above that, we have a little, an elevated sort of recording area that looks down onto the court. And we have on one side, the court's sort of off-center, let's say. So on one side, on the team side, we actually have 10 feet from the base of the bleachers to the out-of-bounds line. There's 10 feet, which will allow for the teams to set up on, chairs along there, and people can walk behind them.
Okay.
And the other side is typically more like 5 feet, which allows for people to go in front. So it's an offset kind of thing that allows a proper distance and proper dimensions for having teams sitting there and allowing people to go by there. And also on the second floor, the locker rooms are all here. So they're all linked, and they all work off this corridor that allows access into these areas. But up on the second level, right above the weight room, actually, there's a weight room that's right here, about 2,000 square feet. But this area right up above here on the second floor is a wrestling room. So there's a large wrestling room that again has direct access. You have to go upstairs, but from the locker room you go straight up into that space, and you have access into the main wrestling room, practice room. So.
But the locker area is on the first floor?
Lockers on the first floor. There's 4 lockers. Essentially the way the state does it is there's 2 PE lockers and 2 varsity, sport lockers. So I don't know, Chris, if you want to.
Okay.
No, that's fine. It's on the second floor. We've got drinking fountain and bathroom up there too. So if they're competing, they need to get a drink of water. There's water up there by the rest.
Exactly.
You want?
Yeah.
You got it.
Now, these are some images.
I do have one question. Is there only 2 crossings there, or is there one by the front? Is there another egress on the front going from one
Yeah,
building?
I'll go back to the site.
Right in the
plan.
front?
The connections across here, there's, between the building A and building B, there's connections directly from the student dining into there on the first floor. Another one on the first floor from essentially the gym to there. And then there's a connection on the second floor, and I think if you've seen the rendering.
Yeah, I did, but
front-
I just don't, I thought it was drawn in white,
From C.
and I don't see it there. That was my
And the
question.
reason is because it's elevated. It's on the
Okay.
second level only.
Okay.
There's a connection here at the second level, and there's a connection between building B and building C on the second level. And you'll see that you'll see that in the next drawings that I'll
Okay.
show you.
Okay.
And then there's a connection here on the first level from building B to building C. Oh yeah, and one of the concerns was,
We've got a slide for that later.
oh, you do? Okay. Now, these are some renderings, or this is a working model, and it doesn't have the quality that, the renderings are really photographic and kind of look very realistic. But one of the things that we do in developing the design is we develop a three-dimensional model. It's a digital model that's actually a three-dimensional model of the building, which this is just sort of a snapshot of one of those. But it allows us to go into a lot of detail in the building, and we use it as a design tool. As we look into each of the particular areas, it allows us to develop that and look at that. And this model is something that we can twist around, in 3 dimensions, and we can go inside of it. In fact, the animation that you saw back in March, the very original one, that was a sort of variation of this. It was a simpler model actually than this, but same sort of a thing. But we'll take this and develop the entire design using this three-dimensional model, and we'll actually eventually go inside too, and we'll develop the inside spaces in this model. So the same sort of thing we'll be able to walk ourselves through, and it just allows us to look at this and develop all the pieces. And you can see there's probably some little variations from the original, and the colors necessarily aren't the right colors, but again, it's areas that allow us to identify. So these were sort of 4 corner views of that model. Just again to talk about the LEED certification for the building, we're pursuing LEED certification, which again is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. The state requires a minimum of a silver certification, which is sort of the second tier up, and that's really where we're aiming for in this case. But again, it addresses sustainable sites, which talks about stormwater and talks about transportation and talks about community connections and things like that. That's the first grouping of credits. Water efficiency, again with the type of fixtures that we have, and trying to use less water. Obviously, is a benefit to that. Energy and atmosphere, which is the biggest one, really. It's all about the HVAC systems and the efficient, energy efficient systems that we put into the building. Materials and resources, again, that's a lot of the stuff that we use, everything that we use in the building, the tile and the block and the ceilings and all the materials. There's low VOCs and local materials as much as we can. And we just had a meeting a couple weeks ago that we went through in a lot of detail with the district and with our consultants, and talking about what things are achievable. And really it's sort of an ongoing thing. It's nothing that's, we said, okay, here it is and we're going to get it. But as we work through the project, there are certain things that come up that, hey, we can achieve this, or maybe we can't, depending upon what the situation is. So it's kind of a working document that we have. Indoor environmental quality, that's really an important one because it talks about the air that we breathe. And there's issues about glues and paints all being low VOCs. It really has to do with comfort of the students and the staff that are in the school, and it's all those kinds of things that come into play with that.
It would also affect something like that could also affect your attendance, as for people not being as sick as they usually are, because you have different types of filters and different things in the duct that clean all the bacteria.
Absolutely.
Well, that's, back in the day when Admiral King was built, fresh air meant all air from the hallway. So classrooms, and that's just building codes back then, is that fresh air for schools meant you bring in air from the corridor into the classrooms. Now it's all fresh air, so big difference.
So those are really important things from the direct kind of experience that students have. Even another one in there is daylighting, and you see here we're sort of blocked out all the daylight, but daylighting is an important thing to have in those classrooms. Again, the learning environment that you have in that kind of a space, as opposed to one that's all internal, is very different. So those are important things to incorporate into the design. The last two are sort of innovation design, and some of those are either special things that we might incorporate, Or what happens is that in some of these, if you can achieve more than what they require, you get extra points in innovation because you've gone beyond what LEED says for your recycling, for instance. That's one typically sometimes we'll get extra credit for because we can, it's so easy to achieve the requirements that they have. So you get extra points in the innovation design. And then regional priority credits is something where the state kind of, actually the USGBC, for every zip code, they identify what are the more critical credits to go after, depending upon what issues might be important in that particular region. And here, stormwater is one, yeah, there's several, there's 6 of them, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. But what happens is if you get those, and they're all credits that are back here, that are deemed to be more important, and if you get those credits, then you get double the points in the regional priority credit. So that's just another aspect of. So that's a way of making allowing you to address certain issues in a way and get more points for that. So,
Question?
yes.
On those, how do they translate to costs?
Some of them don't cost anything. Some of them are just it's just normal design, good design practice. There are some, there are some that do cost money, and I think with the way the state works it is that they actually have a 3% increase in their budget to account for various ways of incorporating those kinds of costs. But for instance, let's just talk about windows for one. Normally they would say we need 5% of the floor area in windows. But that only gets you so much. You can increase that number of glass, the amount of glass in a classroom to gain more daylight, which allows you to save energy as well. But the cost of glass is more than the cost of a wall. So there's trade-offs that you have to work through all the way, all the way through the design. But for instance, materials on the floor, they're really not any more expensive. Like the VOCs and the paints, that's really pretty standard. It's becoming more standard, so those costs don't necessarily.
I was going to say that you can look at LEED from a lot of different angles, and being environmentally friendly and responsible is one aspect of it, but it's not really. And LEED applies to hospitals and residential and the commercial buildings and everything. When it applies to public buildings like schools, we like to look at how does LEED best going to impact operational costs. Because operational costs are what levies are support. So if we can use LEED points that we have to do anyways, like daylighting, to save on electrical costs because we don't have to light the room as much, or high efficient HVAC systems so that they run more efficiently, then what you're doing is you're using the state's 3% that they're giving you and you're bettering your operational expenses.
Chris, tell us what LEED stands for.
Leadership and Energy and Environmental Design. I know Jeff just said that. He's only saying it because I fumble over it every time. That's picking on me.
So I guess the other question then is, at some stage, we're at the bare minimum we're doing. We want to do more.
We're actually not doing the bare minimum. We're doing.
Well, right. I know we want to do more. I mean, I'm saying that's already standard.
Right.
Is there a place where we have to make a decision making as it relates to that? Is this all going to be driven by you on your design, or should we expect at any time for you to come to us and say, we have this option, this option, this option?
Well, it's interesting because we're making most of those decisions in your best interest, I guess.
Correct. Yes.
So, like you get a credit for putting bike racks. I mean, of course, we're going to put bike racks out front because kids ride bikes. So those kind of credits just make sense. I can't think of anything offhand that.
Well, just to answer your question specifically, we had that LEED meeting a couple weeks ago where we had the facilities people and our consultants, and we went through the entire list and talked about every one and what opportunities we had, or what opportunities as a district do they want to address. So we kind of did that, I mean, in a sense where we prioritized, this is where we really want to try to concentrate in terms of credits, and these are ones that we really never gotten before, so it's probably not worth going after. But so it's not totally us. There was a discussion that we had with the district and kind of figuring out what
we came down to things like more sophisticated controls for the lighting,
right?
Things like that you could get that would help us become more efficient.
Exactly.
The type of concretes that you use, permeable concrete, thing versus the lady from the state was phenomenal on
Yes.
coming up with those type of things, but it's a question. Yeah, in the end, it comes down to how many bells and whistles can you afford?
Right.
Okay, and knowing that you want to get to a certain level and maybe strive for a little level higher, you know, I think that's what I came away with.
And I guess understanding what those bells and whistles would be, you know, and talking about that, you look at the section where it talks about innovation and design. You know, we have, I've been saying this since the inception of this project, we have one shot to do this project, and it is probably the largest project that this city has ever seen.
Right.
So it certainly has to be done in a unique manner in which, I mean, the design's great. You know, it looks great. It's going to be just phenomenal. But when we talk about energy and building this thing for the future, you know, what can we include in it? Because, you know, we had a meeting at the college, I don't know when that was, quite some time ago, yeah, a year ago. And I think I brought it up then. You know, we certainly want to look at every avenue we possibly can to make this project very unique in, you know, utilizing alternative energy and doing things that no other high school has ever done. And we want to maximize every opportunity that we have in this process. And we don't want to look back and say, well, we should have done this, or why did we do this? And, you know, ultimately it does rest on this board to approve this project and move it forward. And I don't want to regret anything, decision that I made, and I certainly want to make sure that I'm aware of every opportunity that we have. And I get the cost factor, and I get the lead template, if you will, because it is a template for, you know,
Absolutely.
building. And, you know, I get that. But again, I want to maximize this great opportunity we have with this high school project, you know, because again, we have one shot to do it.
Right. And I think we're doing that. I mean, I think, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have wind turbines on the roof or things like that are very visual that you would, you know, but it's a lot of things that happen within the systems of the building. You know, again, the HVAC system and its efficiency and that. Again, we talked about lighting controls and those kinds of things, which are not necessarily really, you know, real sexy kind of things in terms of energy and stuff, but contribute a lot. Contribute a lot of things to it.
And
So.
I would caution you with, folks, and I know Lisa very well, Lisa Laney, that was probably the one that moderated your first session. She was also in the second one that we just had. And I would caution you by the trends and things that come with that. Folks have, and we just talked about this a little bit before.
Geothermal.
Yeah, geothermal. I mean, we just talked, I mean, we've done schools with geothermal in them. And
It's cracked up to be.
it's not, because what you don't realize is there's a heat pump above the ceiling or in a closet for every single classroom and every single room in the entire building. Imagine changing the filters in those. I mean, and maintaining it, and there's upkeep costs that you don't consider when you're talking about energy savings. So I know Jeff Fox would love to be in charge of changing those filters.
No worries. He'd probably love to be the guy selling them to you.
You know, there's things like chilled beams. Chilled beams a new thing with schools, and we went all the way through construction documents with a big high school in Cleveland designing a chilled beam system. At the end of the day, they couldn't afford it, so we had to redesign it without the chilled beam system. And then they really realized the full scope of chilled beams means you cannot have a window that opens in the entire school. Well, I mean, how does that set you up for flexibility for the future? So there's a lot of systems that we've kind of gone through and seen and have experience with that we're bringing to the table too. So there's some common sense aspects with it. I mean, there's wind turbines and solar, and there's a bunch of stuff out there. It's just the technology has not caught up with the cost savings that those kind of systems bring.
One of the things that, from an energy standpoint, the best thing you can do is give your building envelope. And by what I mean by the building envelope are the walls and roofs and everything that's outside, you know, between there and the outside and between there and the outside, is beef that up, which we've done here. In other words, more insulation, air barriers that are applied. And those are things that you never see. But those things have a huge impact for two reasons. One is it's a thing that, one, you don't have to maintain, and two, it's something you'll gain that advantage every year that you operate that building because it's there. So it's not a special system, it's not, you know, something like that, but it's built into the wall. You don't really see it, but it contributes probably more than anything to the energy efficiency of the building. So, and that's, I think, again, I think all the sort of LEED buildings that we've done, we try to do those kinds of things. They don't, if you look at them, you would say, well, it's just maybe just another building. But the way it performs is above what other
Jeff?
buildings do, so.
Maybe this is the time I got 2 calls from citizens after the story in the paper yesterday. One was dealing with solar energy, and the other was dealing with radon gas, as to whether the radon gas could be a problem in the building, and if so, are there preventive measures? The other, I suppose, would be the efficiency of solar energy. Would you speak to those?
Sure. As long as we're on the alternative energy, let's stay on that one. And again, I think we just sort of touched on it as in terms of investing dollars. Yeah, it's something that everybody can kind of see and it looks really neat on the roof. It doesn't generate that much power particularly for a building this size. The amount of panel that you would need to make any kind of reasonable impact on your cost savings would be a lot of panels and a lot of cost. And again, a better investment would be to take that outside wall and make it a lot better thermally. That's going to save you more money and a better investment, towards the building than something like that. And the paybacks on those things will be a long time, because it's just they can't generate enough power over a period of time to make up for what the cost is on that. In terms of radon, one is that everything's on grade. Typically, radon is associated with rock, and particularly if you have below grade levels that are into rock. But soil has it as well. But there's a couple things. Obviously, we're taking down the building, taking down the elevations, and we're actually adding some soil on the top of this. So our grade is coming up a little bit, and its reason is because of drainage. But our floor elevation is going to be slightly higher than where it is now. What that does is it puts a clean cap of soil over top of the entire, over the building site, which is certainly where the floor is, which mitigates any issues with radon. And I really don't think in this area of the country, or this area of the state, you get into southeastern Ohio and other areas, radon becomes a little more critical. I think it's not so critical in this area, but certainly because we're not going down underground, I don't think it's an issue.
Speaking to the LEED thing, people they'll be maybe sentimental about this, but if I heard right, you take a lot of the brick, or most of the brick, and the concrete from that, you take it and you crush it, and you
Yes.
bring it back and you use that for your foundation.
You can. I mean, the building that's coming down,
Yeah.
all the materials that are coming down are being crushed. We're going to utilize what we can on the site.
So some of it will be part of the old.
Right,
old high school.
but even if we don't, even if not all of it is used on the site, when it's taken off the site, it will be used in another location
Somewhere.
as a recycled
So you get points for that.
Right. I mean, most of the buildings most of the projects where we've had to tear down buildings, we've recycled 88 to 92% of the material of that building. So in other words, what that means is it doesn't go to a landfill. It
Yeah.
gets utilized in other ways,
You
whether on the
if you take a door out and it goes somewhere and it's put somewhere else, then it's considered as being environmental
Yeah,
friendly,
absolutely.
because you used it somewhere else.
Right. So,
Thank you.
I have a question at this point. You have mentioned probably 3 different ways you've been looking at designing this building to create it operationally efficient in terms of cost. Is there anything else that you've looked at, you haven't mentioned tonight, in terms of looking at the design of this building that would save in the operational costs to the district?
Well, we've gone even to the level of, when we look at flooring, we not only talk about the unit cost, the product and the labor to install it, but also the cost it takes to clean and upkeep that flooring. So, because that's an operational cost. So, if we can use a kind of flooring that doesn't need any kind of wax, it still has the same lifespan, the same wearability, then, maybe that's worth thinking about it. And you spend a ton of money on, every school district spends a ton of money on wax every year to wax their VCT. So, and that's just one small example, but
right.
we are maximizing our efforts to make sure, there's been nothing so far where we said, oh, we just can't afford to do that. I know it would save the district a ton of money, but we just can't do that. There hasn't been anything like that. So all of our efforts are going towards, and believe me, when we're considering it, and we're sitting in our design meetings and talking with, and we're involving the custodians as well, to talk about what in their opinion, what would you feel about not using wax ever again? And, you know, the old timers are like, hell, heck no, you got to wax the heck out of these floors. But you know, we're involving everybody. We're making decisions on the best part of the district, and we're doing it with the district. So, yeah.
Thank you. Very good.
Oh, this is kind of cool. You know, it was brought up to us by an administrator and actually a couple teachers that, man, this is a big building, and you know, with just those linkages, how long is it going to take a student to walk from one end to the other end of the building? I mean, they're going to have time to do that between class changes. So Jeff did a little experiment. He was in her office and timed himself walking casually, very slow and casually, and how long he could walk and how far, how long?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it was, you could go 5 feet in 2 seconds, I think is what it amounts to, or something like that, and then stairways. But Jeff had asked us to do a time study on building. Look for like the worst case scenarios or any case scenarios. The first was, if I'm in administration, how long is it going to take me to get over to curb tech? You know, what is that time frame for that? So that was the first one we did, but then we started thinking, well, what if you're on the 3rd floor at the very end of the building? You know, if you're on the 3rd floor way over here and you have to get to lunch, how long does it take you to walk, you know, down the hallway, down the stairs?
It takes longer to get to math. Lunch, I'm good with. I'm sorry, I was 20 minutes late. It's a long walk. You know?
But, you know, and it's an interesting question, you know, because it's such a big building, and you know, we always thought that late connected, that it was fairly efficient, but we didn't really know exactly. So we did this study, and we took various locations between different points of the building and tried to figure out the distance, figure out how many stair risers they'd have to ride, and again, not knowing that it could get crowded with kids in the hallway and maybe stopping in lockers and things like that. Those are all things that influence how fast you can get from one place to another. But you know, this is sort of these are all kind of the pathways and the time frames that we did. And we figured out that you can get anywhere in the building, in the worst case scenario, in under 3 minutes. So you can walk from any place in the building to any place in the other building, in any of the other buildings in under 3 minutes.
Without traffic.
Well, without traffic or with reasonable traffic, because everybody's kind of moving.
You got to remember, Jeff I saw him walking around the office and timing himself. He's walking up the stairs, but he's going about this pace. I mean, so really, he was being very conservative in his estimates.
And there's actually studies that were done, and I looked up as well, for travel studies like that. So I was kind of researching that to kind of get a sense, to see if am I right or wrong? Yeah. But in any case, it was a concern, and because of the size of the building and the way it's configured, we thought it was pretty efficient in terms of moving
How are
around.
we outfitted in terms of elevators and handicap and that kind of scenario?
Right. There's actually an elevator in each of the wings. So the elevator in this wing is in this location, which of course the 2nd floor is really mostly here. So right outside the administration, there's an elevator to get up, as well as stairs. There's stairs there as well. The elevator on this is here on the 2nd, so it's right in the middle. So it's access there, and then the 3rd elevator is in that location there. So you have access in all 3 buildings for multiple levels. Again, this is a 2-story piece. This is 3-story, and this is 2-story. All of our toilet facilities have to be accessible, so we have to provide all the ADA requirements for size of toilet stalls and distances, widths of doors, clearances on the side of doors, all the signage, and then also all the fire alarm, the visual strobes and horn strobes and all those things that the American Disabilities Act requires. Obviously, we have to incorporate, Oh, and I forgot, actually, there's a lift on the auditorium stage. So that's the seating is actually, goes down at floor level here, but it goes down as it moves towards the stage. So the stage is like 4 foot above. But then there's a lift in this corner that allows someone to go from that lower level up onto stage level. So everything that we have, they're required by ADA is being incorporated into the project.
Jeff, is that stage level gonna be, grade level at the stage like
Yes.
at Admiral King,
It is.
old Admiral King?
Yeah, the stage here is at floor level, so everything is at grade there, we'll say.
Is there gonna be an outside entrance into that stage?
Not directly, but we can go through the career tech lab here, and that has an overhead door from the outside, and then you can get it directly onto the stage from there. So it's not directly outside, but it's close to the.
Career Tech stage is like it's a shop, so you can use it for
Right,
scene
right.
shop. So that's where you.
So how big that door gonna be?
Overhead roll door, 14.
Yeah, yeah.
We wanted to focus in on a little bit of some of the other things we've been thinking about out there. And there's, this Lorain School District has a lot of relics, has a lot of history to it. And we want to incorporate those relics into the new building. So as we talk about it, we're going to incorporate a time capsule. We're going to incorporate the original Lorain High School 1914 cornerstone, which you see in the upper left there. We're going to do a Hall of Fame combined with the Black River Historic Society that we're going to show you in just a second. And in that area, we're going to memorialize all the schools somehow, probably some actual brick from each of the schools that they've collected over the years, with maybe a photograph of the school. We're using actually the auditorium seats from King. We've actually are being refurbished off-site. They're going to be reinstalled in the new building, and they're really nice. I mean, the cool thing about that, you're like, am I getting something half standard? You're not. They're actually much more comfortable than the seats that they make now. So they're wider and they're more cushioned. That Admiral King emblem you see up in the right-hand corner, that is cut out and it's going to be stored, and we're incorporating that in the building. The moonstone from Southview, that's in storage right now. And the yellow brick road from the original Lorain High School. We're going to incorporate pieces of that, probably leading up into this Hall of Fame area. This is our idea. And of course, I hit the button too. This is the entrance walking into the cafeteria. Remember that original rendering we talked about? This is how you go into the back, into the cafeteria area. The idea is to provide a space in here. And what it is there's a glass storefront. On the other side of that, there's a large wall that you can hang things on and so on, but it's a three-dimensional wall, so it's kind of like a room. And we've got it kind of shown in the Lorain colors now. This is from the inside of the cafeteria looking out. So you can see you can get into it from here, but you can walk all the way around that. You can store artifacts and photographs and awards and so on in this big blue room kind of thing. But the cool thing is that you can see it, you can enjoy it when the school's closed, you can enjoy it when the school's open. It's in an area where a lot of traffic will be. This is right where you're going to go in for some of the gymnasium events, also by the auditorium, and also by the restaurant. So it's a place to also be. You can actually be in this, you can be around it, you can see it, and it's also not just a trophy case. It's something a little bit nicer than that celebrates the history of Lorain schools. I think that's it. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the guy that just walked out to go to the bathroom.
No.
I'll give him a hand while
Okay.
he's back in.
Sure, I'll just.
Just go ahead and stop that.
Okay. I guess what he was going to tell you is that he is hired by the state of Ohio. He's kind of the third party to this whole thing. He actually independently generated the estimate, the schedule, and everything. And he was supposed to stand up here and say, hey, they're on budget and they're on time. So, but now that he's gone, I can tell you that if you love the design, then it's Jess and my thing. If something goes wrong in construction, it's Dana's problem. Oh, there he is. Dana, we're just ready for you.
Don't believe it, Dana.
Do we give an update?
Yeah, my name is Dana Smith, I'm with Ham Construction. We're the construction managers on the project. What we do is, during the design, in every step that Chris had mentioned of phase of the design, is give a check on our schedule, design schedule, check on the price, and see where we are moving towards our goal. And to date, it's all good news. Everything you've seen here, our budget will accept. So that's two things. Pretty exciting that that happened, and it doesn't happen very often. So we will continue to work with the design team as we move through the construction documents and make sure that we remain on schedule. Now, the design schedule that we've all helped generate and signed off on has us completing CD documents towards the end of the summer in August. So we're still on schedule for that. After that's done, we, the CM, will go through again our pricing exercise, make sure we're on budget, and then we will start generating the construction documents for bidding. So we'll be bidding through, we'll get the CDs in August. There'll be a 4 to 6 week period where we review them, check that, present that to the board for a phase submission, and then once that's approved, move on to the bidding process. So in the next couple of weeks, hopefully your next board meeting, you will have in front of you for approval the BD phase submission. And it's been, that's a big milestone. So we're good with the schedule as far as the new building is going and the budget. I want to talk a little bit about the demolition. I'm sure you've all driven by there. I just had to step out because there was an issue, so I took care of it. I apologize. But that's going on according to schedule. The main building is almost down. Was down a little quicker than we thought just a second ago, but everything's good. So it's coming down. The whole thing should be down by the end of this week. And then we're going to go through the process of getting rid of all the debris, taking up all the foundations and on-slab concrete, and filling it back with structural fill to an elevation where it will allow us to immediately go into construction in the spring when all the bids have been let. So that's the game plan for the demolition. It's on schedule, on budget, and we're moving forward nicely on that. So things are good. But it's exciting to know that everything we've seen here is in the budget, and we're able to afford. You are able to afford to have it done. So that's exciting.
We just talked about the differences of blame if there's something that goes wrong in
It's
construction.
their fault. Good. Any questions on the costs or schedule?
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Beaver has
I had a bunch of questions.
Please, yes, actually, if there's anybody from, no, let's do this now. If there's anybody who, in the audience who has any questions for the gentleman who just presented, take a few moments to.
I got a bunch. Was there a public meeting? Because I heard you talking about concrete or something.
They have another league meeting that like
Was
you
that
and
a
I,
public meeting?
that you and I stepped through. No, it was like the one that you and I stepped through. First league
Before,
meeting.
But not
yeah, I wasn't aware of that because I would ask some of those questions.
No,
It wasn't a public
it
meeting.
was not a public meeting, it was an internal district meeting.
All right. Okay, so that's all. Okay. How the size of the main gym? How does it compare to the size of the old Admiral King gym?
Bigger.
Bigger than that. Okay. The other concern was the auxiliary gym. I saw it's just 194 by 50 feet. That kind of cramps practices.
Most auxiliary gyms aren't 94 feet.
I'm well aware of that. I'm very aware of that. That's not my point. I just been at Elyria High practice doing basketball practices. They got a Champaign building with a shot and beer gym. You can't run 5-man weave on the side court because after 3 passes, you're under the basket.
Yeah, see, that's the
So
biggest.
that's my question, is when you have 2 teams practicing at the same time, the main gym, clearly you can do varsity and JV at the same time. In the auxiliary gym, you can't.
Yes, they're all 3 identical size courts.
Yeah, you're right. So is there any possibility of making some kind of adjustment so that you could have 2 side-by-side full courts so that all 4 teams could practice simultaneously instead of somebody having to come back late? Or is that something that could be done with whatever additional cost there might be if it's within the LIF?
Is that a question for me? I mean, we
Well,
can
it would
pay
be,
for
so it would be for you and the board as well.
Yeah, right now,
I mean, what I'm starting to get a sense of that this is a done deal and that's it.
well, Let me think about that. We're asking for permission from the board to move into the bidding documents, so that.
I understand that, and that's a legitimate concern on your part. I'm a citizen
Yep.
who's got an $80 million building here, that I want to make sure that we can maximize everything for our students. And the taxpayer gets their best bang for their buck. So that would be an immediate concern. I don't know if that's doable, or if that's something the board would want to
Let me
do.
just understand the question. Are you asking that if we can do 4 gyms instead of 3?
Well, or configure in such a way that you can do it that way. I see what you've got. You've got the 3 side by side. That's great, particularly if you're gonna do a tournament or something. But, the problem that coaches have, and this is what I start to have a concern for, because I'm starting to see that plans are being made without input from the practitioners. Like, I was really concerned about the answer I got about the entrance to the stage. I don't know, whoever does the drama, the old stage there, they had that gigantic pull door that you could drive a truck in and you can unload everything on the gym. It didn't look to me from that design that was possible.
Well, I would just say that.
But I'm not, I don't know enough about that to even know if that's a concern, but I do know a lot about gyms and practices. And one of the problems you got is somebody's got to come back late at night if you don't have the adequate facilities so that everybody can practice right after school. And I mean, I think that's a legitimate concern, and maybe the board needs to maybe get together with the AD and talk about that. I don't know, it's not my call, but I can say that was something that would make it better. Second question would be the wrestling room. Okay, where is it the intention for the wrestling matches to be held?
Probably the varsity gym, when we talk to the AD and the coaches.
Okay, that's the intention. And now, is there storage for the mats?
Mat hoist.
Well, they're gonna be in hoist, same thing with batting cages and stuff like that, they'll be hoist to get them up. Because we've got a couple of great junior high gyms, we have no storage. And the storage needs to be a consideration there. Another one, handicap ramps. Are there handicap ramps inside the gym?
Don't need them.
Yeah, we don't need them. Inside the gym? No.
We got 7 elementary schools with them inside the gym.
Cafeteria.
That's why I asked, they finally got it right on the 8th one.
Was it access to a stage?
It was access to a stage.
Yeah,
You have to get a multi-purpose room or
It
that.
was bad planning. Your assistant coach has to stand in front of the poles so the player doesn't impale himself on the poles.
There's no ramps in the gyms at all.
Okay, well then that solves that problem there. The what size of the wrestling room? I heard 2,000 for the weight room. What's the size of the wrestling room?
You remember?
I think it's 3.
3,000,
I
that
think it's
sounds right.
3,000, which allows you to have 2 mats, 2 full-size
2
mats.
full.
No poles or anything, just wide open.
Correct.
No support structure there. Okay. Oh, the Hall of Fame now. While having badmouthed Elyria about their gyms, which are terrible, they did a super job with their Hall of Fame. If you've been through there at all. What's the size? Is that your idea, the Hall of Fame, that little glass enclosed
Yes.
way? How big is that?
It's probably 15 by 30, something like
Big.
that.
You must not think much of our athletic history.
Well, wait,
No,
there's
no,
two things, I think, that's not the athletic hall of fame.
All right.
The athletic hall of fame would be, or the athletic, let's say the trophies and all the memorabilia that were in the main hallway, that'll be actually in the main hallway next to the gym. There'll be display cases along that main
Okay,
wide
but that's
hallway.
what I heard Hall of Fame, and there's a whole Hall of Fame over at St. Joseph's Center full of all kinds of memorabilia, that if you're gonna incorporate that, there needs to be some kind of plan to put that in.
I think the discussion was that, I believe the discussion is that it's one that's not gonna be the whole thing, but there'll be a rotation of stuff too. In other words, that would allow for storage inside there and rotate the displays on the outside of that.
What's the size of the lobby outside? Is the entrance gonna be on the parking lot side, or is it gonna be on the academic building side?
This is the cafeteria, and those are the doors that go right out the back to that big parking lot. Yeah.
So that will be the entrance to the gym as well?
Correct. You come through the dining to the, yes.
Yes, it's the Annie space for the gym.
See, like over there at Old Southview, there is no grade level access to the stage. You gotta go down steps, the doors are blocked, so you can't come in that way. and you can't get anything on the stage that's big at
No.
all.
This
And
has,
then-
just
and
to
then
explain
at
the stage
the
real quick, 'cause
The old Lorain High, you couldn't get nothing on the stage, the old Lorain High.
this is, the stage is level with the ground, okay?
Okay,
So there's
good.
no elevated dock or anything like that,
Okay.
or anything. There's a huge garage door that
How
opens
big
up,
is huge?
14 feet high by 12 feet wide. It's as big as a semi-truck can back up into it. So pull that open, now that material gets taken into the seam shop.
Right.
So that's where all your raw wood, everything is there. From there, directly next to that is the stage.
Okay, and how big is that door from the stage, from the, construction shop?
It'll be big enough to get
the stage?
anything that has to go into that fly through that area.
So that'll be a 14-foot door also, by 12-foot wide?
No, it's not gonna be that big, but we don't need to have anything that large to get in there.
Then that's kind of, if you want something big to get on the stage, you won't be able to.
You're not gonna be able to drive, you're not gonna be able to drive a car on the
At
stage.
Admiral King, at Admiral King, he's able to drive anything in. And then that too, if we need to bring equipment in to repair the flight system, you gotta think of that too. If you gotta bring a GLG in there or something to get to that flight system.
You'll be able to get that. I mean, I think where Jeff was going with that is there's not a full semi-truck door in between that and the stage, nor do we believe there needs
I
to
don't
be.
know how, how high that, the flight system's gonna be. I believe at Admiral King it was like 60 foot. And we got the flight system replaced at Admiral King. And they did bring a GLG over there. So. That's it.
We'll review it and look at it. I think what we
And
have.
then
works,
in the
but-
gym, we need something to be able to pull, lifts in there too, I don't know how high the gym's gonna be, but you gotta bring your, be able to bring your lifts in there.
Yep.
Your scissors lifts and stuff,
Which will fit through a pair of doors.
sometime.
Yeah.
Well, you want a little bit bigger.
Can you tell us about art rooms and gallery spaces so that artwork can be displayed in a secure manner?
Yeah, and actually, the art rooms, there's an art room on each floor, and if you remember the middle building, which is all the academic, the three-story building in the middle, there's an art room on each level, at the very end, actually at the east end towards Ashland. The end of the building is basically the entire art room, so there's a large art room, which I think they're probably around 1,400 square feet, and then there's a kiln room and a storage room that's associated with each art room. And I realized, and talking with the art teachers, they only have one kiln. So there's one space they'll have a kiln, the other ones will just be more storage space. So they're out at the end of that building on each level.
Is the elevator near where those art rooms are?
Well,
Because
there's an elevator in the middle of that wing, there's an elevator. So down the hallway would be an elevator, yes. And we've got display that we have and at the end of that hallway as well.
That's built in
It's
and locked
built
in.
in.
Are there displays in any of the other building places so that so that anything that is displayed can be viewed by the public coming in for either musical or athletic events or other school events?
And I think we have, there's display that's around the building as well. There's other locations where that would be. I don't have specifically, but, and some of that is still in development. Some of those specific things are still being worked through in terms of all the kind of detailed stuff.
We're trying to maximize the wall space for display cases. The tough things with lockers. I'm sorry.
2D and 3D things need to have their spaces.
Correct.
Yep.
I was gonna ask about floors. Has there been a decision on terrazzo floors or not?
Not yet, and we're even talking about maybe building some alternates into our bid, so that we have, if we have a great bid day savings, that we have some money, where do we put
I
that
mean,
money?
that's just the classic case of upfront cost is more, but it
Lasts
lasts
forever.
longer than the building.
Sure do.
I mean, I don't know of any custodian or anybody that doesn't think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, but how many people do terrazzo?
Right. It's expensive, but it's definitely.
Or if there's
one of
a
these
window
ones-
material that works the same way as opposed to something else.
I think one of the things
cheaper
we're also,
there.
one of the things we're talking about too is that maybe we, again, in trying to optimize things, put it in the more public areas. So we're talking about the main hallway next to the gym and maybe the student dining. Those are the areas that we would consider it because it's very public, that everybody sees that, it gets a lot of wear. It wouldn't necessarily be throughout the entire building, because we couldn't afford that. But there are places that you could incorporate it where where it has an impact on.
But you see Dana sweating back there because there's not much around him.
In terms of the art rooms being one on each level, is there a plan to make the one on the bottom level with an outdoor access so that either large things can come and go, or that activities that would require outdoor access could occur?
One of the things that happens on that end is that there's a door right there. It's not literally in the art room, but it's like this is the art room, and that door right there, there's an outside door that's right next to that that takes you out into one of the courtyards between the buildings, so that could become it could be a lot of things. It could be an outdoor art court, or it could be places where classes could come outside and do something, but they're sort of within that courtyard area. So there's immediate access to that side.
Two things. The one reason that's there is because the art rooms are just stacked. So even if you're on the third floor and you want to come down and use that outdoor space, you just come right down the stairs and out.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we're always conscious of security in schools. So we're minimizing outside doors and that kind of stuff. You won't see kind of doors done like that anymore, where every room has an outside door and so on. So.
And yeah, what is the approximate size of the Hall of Fame space that you anticipate?
You asked that before, I can't remember.
It's probably around 600 or 700 square feet.
And
Have you
here's
talked to any of the Hall of Fame people about it?
Well, and here's the thing, right before you keep going on this, wait, one thing, is that this is supposed to be an LFI space. Because we're keeping it the size it is, and in the location it is by the foyer, we're calling it an OSFC co-funded space, and they're gonna co-fund it for you. If we made it bigger or put it in a different location, they're gonna make that square footage times $265 a square foot, all on the district. So, we're
I
trying to
understand
maximize
that, I
it.
mean, what's the size of the LFI fund that we have?
Well, the LFI fund we've set aside right now to do, there's 2 LFI slated for the project. One is to do some classroom space, and the other one is to do the auditorium. So we tried to budget those in a way that the LFI money that we have, which is mostly accrued via the interest from the OSFC money, that we don't exceed that, and yet we're under it a little bit to allow us a cushion and maybe do some other things. But currently, we're just underneath what we have, and it co-funds some additional classroom space and the auditorium at this time. So yeah, as we get further down into CDs and do that budget, a lot of the contingencies in this phase of the project, you always have design contingencies, construction contingencies. Those start to get whittled down once you get the finer design. And at the CD level, we'll be able to fine tune this thing so that with a good set of alternates and lower contingency, we may be able to do some more things. But we'll know here in the next few months.
Can I just, go on?
Before you do, there was just one more question from the audience. I know you had a question.
Okay.
Do you guys have any more details on the music wing? Like, what's the size of the band room? Like, how many can the
big.
band room seat? Huge, yeah.
It's big, it's a flat floor, I made sure the doors are wide enough.
Yeah, I figured you
The
would be.
very first question I ask is, how big are the doors? Because when you have 120 kids or plus, when they hit the end of the band and they're going through with tubas, do they have enough room? Where do the tubas store? Where do the drums store? Where does that
Yeah, I
store?
think-
How do they get to the auditorium?
Yeah, I think my main concern would be storage too, because I know like at Southview, and Admiral King was worse, like Southview was
Admiral
actually
King was
better.
terrible.
Like rooms that were designed to be used for practice were have music, or being used for storage because there's not enough storage.
Yeah, but that,
We're not having the debate, so.
no, I'm just one comment. The outside door at the band room with Admiral King was like 4 foot though.
Yeah,
That
folks,
was a
what
wider
we're
door.
trying to do is keep a focused conversation. We're not talking about Admiral King.
Yeah.
We're talking about a state-of-the-art building built now. All these folks are professionals. I know they make mistakes, but even the size of this thing, just so you know, what is this? 2.5 times the size? Yeah, I mean, we're so much bigger than Admiral King that it's not even a comparison point anymore. But some of the specific questions we hope that we could address. Here's what our process is. These gentlemen are engaged with Director of Operations and with other parts of the staff. The best place for designing the band room and all those applicant pieces are going to come from those staff folks. They're the professionals. It's the same thing with Brian Corey and his staff. If they've got something they're concerned about, they better fire him. But that's probably the greatest process or the capacity to have anything that's addressed. It's going to go through that staff piece. We had some meetings early on in this process where we invited folks in to have discussions on what they wanted to see. Many folks didn't take that opportunity. So we are so far into design now. When we start talking about expanding spaces and different things, it's not nearly as easy as it might appear to be. And again, this is not our first conversation. We've been talking about this stuff in air or not for a very long time. And where we are in this process right now is pretty far down the road.
Let me just, so that in the papers, and there's no misunderstanding. When you speak of the Hall of Fame space, we're not talking about the Lorain Hall of Fame Museum. We're talking about an area to house some sports memorabilia pertinent to Lorain schools, not trophies. Superintendent, trophies are going to go all along the hallways and showcases where the gym is. The same with the Black River Historical. It will only be a small area to house some of the memorabilia that we have loaned to both the Sports Hall of Fame and the Black River Hall of Fame. We passed, the board back in 2002, I believe, passed a resolution that anything we give of school memorabilia to either any museum or any other group, it's on loan. It is ours to recall anytime. So you're not building space to house the Sports Hall of Fame or the Black River Historical. Actually, we're hoping the Black River Historical can make arrangements to move into the former Carnegie Library building in Streeter Park, and maybe the Sports Hall of Fame too. But that's not what's going in the high school. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's our understanding as well. And honestly, most of these spaces that are being created nowadays are being created digitally. So they're putting up large screens that can rotate images, and that way they're saving storage space and they can archive their materials, especially the old stuff. But that's another option. You've got a nice space, you can do whatever you like with it. But that's,
Thank you.
In fact, what we do is we would encourage the superintendent and his staff to continue to work closely with the teachers, other administrators. If there's going to be some clashing, please clash now. I mean, if somebody wants to fight for something, they need to get in there and have that conversation and get an understanding on why they can have it or why they can't have it. Because what we don't want is we don't want people being frustrated, upset, disappointed, and then going outside to complain about it. The only correction that will be made is going to be internally. And argue there, complain there, get your feelings hurt there, get your agenda moved there, because that's the only place where it's going to happen.
And just to add just one thing, I don't want there to be an assumption that we haven't been in communication with the staff or had those arguments and that kind of stuff haven't gone. They have, and they've gone on for the last 8 months. I mean, we've been scraping over. We wanted a lot more gyms at one time, and you know, it's everybody fighting for what they're representing. So the athletic director's not exactly fighting for a bigger stage. So that's the kind of stuff we've gone through, and we've balanced that the best we can and mitigated it the right way, and we are where we are now through a process that we've taken everybody through, you know, and we think it's a good process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we would entertain first hearing of the public. If anyone would like to have any comments to the board, please step forward. Indicate your name.
My name is Ann Duche. My address is 554 Ogden Drive, Elyria, Ohio. And I've worked in this district as an art teacher for 20 years, and I still care about it. I have asked the board 3 questions with no official response from them. Rather, the board directed the superintendent to respond, which he did. Now, lawyers say, never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. And essentially, I asked the board, why did you cut the fine arts? Knowing that the answer is they don't value them. They don't believe that fine arts help students learn. They don't believe that the fine arts empower students to value themselves and others. They don't believe that the fine arts give students a positive way
to move past fear, to love the life God gave them. I know that this is true because for 20 years, my fine arts colleagues and I coped with the devaluation of the arts. We coped with decreasing budgets, increasing class sizes, inadequate facilities, unstable schedules, and more. I have just cause to state that the board does not value the fine arts. Now, in contrast, a story appeared on the NBC Nightly News about a principal in Massachusetts. He did a radical thing. He replaced the security guards in his building with art teachers. And the result was higher test scores and fewer discipline problems. Now, I should say, I'm not advocating that we eliminate our security guards, but where there's a will, there is a way. A student from that school explained that the arts help you see that there's more than one way to do something, and that you can take that to the academics or anywhere else. And an art teacher from the building said that the arts help students push out their frustrations so that they can concentrate on the other academics. You keep saying that you can't afford fine arts. And I say that you cannot afford not to have the fine arts in the curriculum for all students. A budget is an expression of values. Put the fine arts back in the budget. The time is now. To know that the fine arts help students achieve academic success and emotional growth, and to ignore this is to commit educational malpractice,
Ma'am,
in my opinion.
3 minutes is up, ma'am. 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, it is not our custom to respond, but you've been gracious and we've been patient and we've had an ongoing dialogue. I won't debate your passion, but I will say this. I'm not comfortable with the assessment of the statement that board members do not care about fine arts, or that board members do not value fine arts. You can say that there are budgetary pieces where we have made cuts in fine arts. That's accurate. You can say the actions that were taken, but you cannot dictate, determine, or state how we feel or what we think. That is disrespectful and is irresponsible. For me to say that you're passionate about what you're doing is accurate. For me to try and assess anything about your character or what you value based on that would not be reasonable. So I would appreciate that we appreciate your passion and your concern, and we share those passions and concern. But I'm not comfortable with you just saying that we don't care and that we don't value something that we probably personally value as much, if not more than you.
Well, let me just say that when you say we, Mr. Williams, and I have had this discussion with you many times, you are not speaking for me.
Perhaps not, but what I said...
Nor are you speaking for the board.
Jim?
No, I listen to you. I
happen
to agree with Ann. Because if we judge ourselves by our actions, whether it's true or not, I'm not debating that. But the actions over the last couple of years show a pattern of putting some areas of the school curriculum in school programs in a different light than others.
I don't.
So if we judge by what actions have been taken, she has a valid point.
Jim, I'll ask you one question. Do you care about arts?
Of course I do.
Thank you. Then I am finished. Thank you. So I'm not speaking for you. You have now spoke for yourself. You just said you care about the arts.
Yes, thank you.
And the statement that I made is, and it's correct, all of us sitting here do care about the arts.
Well, then you should ask each board member then. If you're saying all, then ask them.
I think I'm confident with my rapport with my board colleagues that I've made that statement.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Mr. Williams.
Wonderful.
Please, Mr. Fallis.
Just for the record, I was on the board of directors for Young Audiences Greater Cleveland, and I have a great respect and admiration for the arts and how they can teach a student. to become better, more educated citizen. So I place a big value on that, and it's very difficult to sit with my colleagues here on the school board and sometimes have to make decisions that are very, very difficult and maybe impact a certain segment of the school district that is your passion. But I have a very, very great respect for the arts and know what they can do for a human being, whether it's a student or an adult. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, if we could have oh, there's another, I'm sorry. Hey man, how you doing?
What's up? Well, hi there. My name's Aaron Sija, and I live at 2226 East 32nd Street. And I just wanted to say I think you guys are doing a really good job up here. And I've been reading the headlines at school, and I like what I'm seeing. I think it's great that you're thinking of, or the, what was I going to say? The Sports Hall of Fame thing is thinking about going into the building on in Streeter Park, that old library. I think that's awesome because I read that was empty. And I was actually going to say something too, like before you came up here, and I'm not trying to debate you or anything, man. It's like I respect your passion, but I actually think that you guys have done a good job with the arts. Like I was pleased. I was actually surprised that we were able to retain band in middle school and like music in middle school. So I was pretty pleased with that. And I actually just got back yesterday from performing with the Ohio University Marching Band in Ireland and Italy. And I noticed there that in both Ireland and Italy, they don't have music as part of their like normal curriculum in school. And I don't know if that really has any relevance in our conversations because it's the United States and we have a different attitude, but it just kind of made me realize like how lucky we are to even have that. So I think you guys are doing a good job.
I don't know if you know this, but this guy here is a Buckeye Band alumni. Am I right, Mr. Williams?
Nobody's perfect.
I know, and we accept that you went to OU. That's okay, it happens.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Sija.
You're welcome.
Now, if I might have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held on April 23rd, 2013.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Spellis?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes. Gentlemen, is there any old business for discussion?
No business.
Moving on, at this time, Mr. Weber, we could have a report and recommendation of the treasurer, please.
Yes, two short items on the docket for approval. The first one is the Lorain Associates. It's an annual audit for our Medicaid project. The Medicaid project, just a little refresher for the board. We think we have an opportunity to bring in at least $100,000 a year, if not more, into the general fund because it's a reimbursement from the federal government, and by law that has to be audited every year. And Lorain Associates chose them, and it's about $2,000 a year to audit that project. And item 2 are donations. There's 5 of them on the docket for approval. And one more thing just to think about, I'm requesting that the board move the June 25th board meeting to June 27th to accommodate year-end closes and opening up the new year. So I spent for approval items 1 and 2.
Motion to approve items 1 and 2.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I want, for the record, I emailed the board president, the superintendent, and treasurer earlier today, informing them that after careful evaluation of the current 5-year forecast and the information Mr. Weber supplied in November, after the levy passed and a loan was obtained, we are still showing a deficit for this coming school year. And I informed them that I would not approve any resolutions spending general fund money until I had an opportunity to review Mr. Tucker's reorganization plan and Mr. Weber's 5-year forecast, which I believe you said would be available at the next board meeting.
That is correct.
And there are no items on this agenda tonight that require immediate action, they all can be done at the next meeting or once that other information is available. So please make sure that my email that was sent to you, Mr. Weber, is part of the minutes for this meeting. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Weber. This time we have the report and recommendations of the superintendent, Mr. Tucker.
One of our employees is currently serving in Afghanistan. It's his third term. That person is Dr. Stephen Sturgill, who I worked with for a long time. While he was over there, the Department of Defense has a program, and the program is called Employer Support of the Guard Reserve, and it's a national program that honors employers that treat their and support their military employees while serving overseas. He wrote a paragraph of which was read to me by the people that came, and I accepted on behalf of this organization. I didn't know much about it, and they gave me a lot of information. I looked it up. We received a statement of support for the Guard and Reserve, and it is a pretty big deal. What we got was called the Patriot Award. It's the first level, and I attended a luncheon in Akron. This particular area encompasses a section that comes from about Sandusky all the way to Pennsylvania, and quite a way south. One of these plaques, and I'll leave it up here so you can read it, will be in each building because of what we do to support our people. The other thing that I have been invited to represent the district, there's a banquet, a statewide banquet this Saturday evening in Columbus, in Dublin actually, that I'll be attending. And there's different levels of these awards, and depending on what was written, we're in line to possibly go up another level on how we treat our employees. I thought that was very commendable, and when they called to come present it, I didn't know much about it, did some research, and when I attended the luncheon and things, it's a pretty big deal. There's a few employees from the Department of Defense, and almost all the rest of these ladies and gentlemen are retired service people. Almost every of them have been overseas 1 or 2 or 3 times. I mean, there's some Vietnam vets involved, and it was a really big deal. And I think the district, it wasn't me, it's the district should be complimented. And this was all because of Dr. Sturgill's application that he put in for the district. So we should be honored to receive that, because Lorain City Schools has done a good thing. Okay, on personnel matters, items 1, certified staff, support staff, A and B, resignations and retirements. Item 2, new appointments of substitutes as listed. Item 3, approval of leave of absences as listed. Item 4, this is concerning renewal of an employment contract for teaching staff. This is a teacher that we had overlooked at the last one for tenure, and he is eligible, so we put it on for this one. It should have been on last time, but we wanted to make that right this time. And item 5 is supplemental contracts for next year, which is part of what you approved last year, and also what's going up. And B, non-certified staff supplementals as listed. You can notice that some of those are for the musical that was just presented last weekend, and those were all endowment fund expenditures, and they are asterisk there, so you can see that. I asked for personnel matters approval. A, items 1 through item 5 as listed.
Motion to approve items 1 through 5.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Approval of operation B, item 6. There was a question asked why we only got 1 bid on that. I'd like Mr. Hawks just to speak to that. There's a process that we have to follow that's under state law, and he can explain a little more because there was a question. Okay. No, go ahead.
Do you just want to? I guess the question is, it looks like we received only 1 bid, and so can you explain, I guess, the process, so we as a school board could get a better understanding as to I guess that we're getting fair value for services rendered to the school district for busing, being that we only got one bid. Thank you very much.
To answer your question, we put out what they call...
Actually, what we should do, I'm sorry, this is my mistake. We probably should have a motion for item 6 so we can discuss it.
We have a motion for item 6.
Motion to approve item 6.
Second.
Discussion.
Sorry.
It's okay. We put what we call a request for a proposal out. We put that in the local newspapers, and during that time period, there's a date that we must receive, all proposals. That goes out in the local newspapers and throughout the United States. Actually, the bus companies, they do watch these kind of proposals, just like you would for construction bids and things like that. We had actually the 3 inquired in regards to it. 2 of the companies were from Illinois, and 1 our local First Student. And those were the only ones that did put up any type of question. And First Student is the only one that did put a proposal in, a bid in for our transportation. But it's pretty well known out there, and they, the bus companies do look for these type of proposals, throughout the United States. It's pretty common.
Do you put the RFPs in the local paper, or is it put in a national
it's put in there.
Magazines, or
right?
How is that done?
It's a request for a proposal, and then it states they'll ask for it through our purchasing procurement office, and once they receive that, it spells out all the things that we are asking for them to do to provide the transportation for our students here in our district. It gives them, and then they ask questions like, how big is your district? How many students do you have? They usually request what they call our T1 report, and that's the state report that spells out pretty much everything on the transportation side.
How do we advertise that, and what media?
Again, in our local newspaper, and it was on our website also.
You follow state guidelines on...
Yes.
You're requesting bids. You're
Correct.
requesting a request for proposals, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there a state procedure that has to be followed?
Yes, we there's a number of days that has to be put out, and again, it has to have 2 different media, and we met those requirements.
Those were followed, correct?
Yes, sir.
Don't call me sir.
Yes, Mr. Smith.
Let me is this a general fund expense?
Yes, it is. A portion of that, in which is special ed.
Yep.
A portion of it is special ed, and we do get those funds from the special ed department, and it meets through the IDEA. If I may look at my wife and to make sure.
Well, let me just say I'm going to vote no, because we don't know where we stand financially, although we know we have to have buses. We also know that First Student stepped up to the plate last year, or we wouldn't have high school busing. And a publication from the Ohio School Boards Association, I think all board members received that. I received mine yesterday. I emailed Superintendent Tucker and asked him so I could compare. The last year, the state numbers were given were for the 2009-2010 school year. I asked Mr. Tucker for our same per student cost for that school year. He actually sent me 2 school years.
2 years.
And for the same school year, the 2009-2010, we were $206 per student under the state average. And you multiply that by 7,500 or so students.
Right.
And I certainly have no complaints with First Student. And the following year
Went down.
was still, it went down. So just wanted to say that. I'm not going to vote no, because I'm dissatisfied. That's the reason.
I appreciate that, Mr. Smith. If I can just make one comment in regards to what you just said. First student in their first for next year, they are in their contract are willing to keep the same price that they did last year, and also they're stepping forward a little bit more even for the safety of our kindergartners. They are going to do what they call a door-to-door pickup. Just because they're concerned about our little ones.
I have a question. Since we're having these discussions, what would happen if 3 of us voted no on this?
Well, one thing that's unknown here, according to the 5-year forecast, that has not been updated. And 2, the way the state of Ohio works, we also have it's been through the House, you've got the governor's budget, and we may not know till June 30th. Under the governor's plan, we're looking to get $6 million additional dollars. Under the House plan, it'll be $3 million. It's now in the Senate. There are no guarantees, but at this juncture, we are slated to get some money at some point. Our treasurer cannot put that in any kind of amount yet because it's not been allocated. So that is something.
But I guess what I'm asking is if we all decide to vote no on transportation, we would set ourselves at peril.
We wouldn't have buses.
Yeah.
We should just stop the day-to-day operations.
Well, no, I'm not finished, Jim. I'm not finished. I'll let you go when I'm done, please.
Thank you very much.
And it's I appreciate everybody's independence in voting, but we have to do the work of the district. So we can't sit here and irresponsibly all vote no. So what happens is a person can vote no because they know the vote's going to carry forward. And it's posturing. It's I respect the vote, but this is not if it's politics, if it's gamesmanship. Again, because everybody here plays the game pretty well, and we interact, we get what's best for the district. We try to, but that's a difficult place to be, Jim.
Well, I want to clarify something, Mr. Williams. And ladies and gentlemen, I represent the citizens of the district. I do not vote to spend money until I know how much money we have. None of these issues on the agenda tonight have to be approved tonight. The bus company will have to have a response by June 30th.
Just for the record, you're voting no on transportation. That's all I'm making it clear.
I'm not voting no on transportation. I'm voting no because I don't believe that I should be voting to spend public funds unless I know how much money we have to spend. And that's it. And there's nothing else.
No, the
you
motion.
Can make out of it what you wish, sir, but I'm not. Yes,
the motion is transportation. That's what the vote is for. It's consider the approval of student transportation services contract.
And we could do that in June and still get student services busing. Isn't that right, Mr. Hawk?
We will now bring this to a vote.
When does the present contract end, sir?
The present contract ends June 30th, but however, it would please for a student if they would have a little bit of a notice because we have summer school coming up. We have to deal with that, and that there's some of June and July, but we also, the first student needs to have a little bit of a lead time because part of the contract is that they have to order new buses. And
but
so
I wasn't
that they can be there
elected to represent the
for
first
August.
student. I was elected to represent the citizens of the district.
And there is, if Mr. Tucker, he could probably expand on this, there is legislation that is out there that they may go from a 2-mile radius to a 1-mile radius also. So that's going to put even a bigger burden upon the district if that does pass.
I would assume the contract then, and I haven't read it that precisely, but it would have language to protect per student if that happens.
Actually, the language is in there to protect the district.
In other words, are you saying that at this price, if it was a 1 mile and there would be increased busing, they couldn't charge us anymore?
No, actually the contract's in there for statements that they charge per bus, per hour, and that's why we put that in the contract. Anything that we would have to expand beyond what we have now, the contract states that they would charge us each independently for each bus.
So they've protected themselves.
Well,
Which I
actually,
would
well,
hope
we'll
they
look
would
at
do.
it both ways.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
serious. Well, I
you're-
would, I
you're
mean,
correct.
of course.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a motion on the floor. And roll call, please.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Fellis?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Item 7, enter contract with North Coast for services delivered during 2012-2013. This is an auxiliary fund. This is not for us. We are flow-through funding anyways. This is grant funding. A contract, item 8, entering a contract with James Smith, not the one to my left.
Thank you.
I knew you were going to say
I
it, so
couldn't
I just
fix
went
any
ahead.
building anyway.
For services to deliver. This is also for the mobile units, St. Anthony's and St. Peter's. This is also flow-through funding for us. Considering entering a contract with MT Businesses for services delivered. This is also auxiliary funds for St. Peter's that flow through us. Item 10, entering a contract with Rick DeWitt for the services delivered. This is an endowment fund expense. This was part of the musical for this year. Item 11, which was paid for by endowment fund. Item 11, considering a contract with Carol Malika, and this was an endowment fund expense. This is for piano accompaniment for the Lorain High School musical, also endowment fund. Item 12, consider renewal of the multi-agreement contract with the ESC of Lorain County. This is an annual agreement which we buy services from them. You've done this for many, many years for services we can't necessarily provide. Item 13, consider a contract with the ESC Center of Cuyahoga County for services delivered for next year. This is a Title IIA grant expense. This is also for professional development for teachers for the OTES, a teacher evaluation system for them. Item 14, consider and entering a contract for Triumph Learning Services for services for next year. This is also a Title IIA grant expenditure. This is professional development. This is for all K-8 teachers and principals. This is for the use of online supplemental reading and math materials. Item 15, consider of approval of a contract with Edmund to provide Plato professional development for the 2012-13. This is for Plato implementation of that. This is for our career tech students. This money is a Carl Perkins grant expenditure. So I'd ask for operations B, items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Motion to approve items 7 through 15.
Support motion.
Is item 12 a general fund?
It's probably
Does
a
it
deduction
matter?
from the state off of our foundation monies.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Fellis?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Facility Matters C, item 16, consider approval of a resolution to advertise for bid for the abatement and demolition of Masson Elementary School. And item 17, consider approval of a resolution of state-required phase submission for construction documents for the abatement and demolition of Masson Elementary School. You guys are more familiar with these documents than I am. So I ask for approval of item 16 and item 17.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Discussion?
Can I ask Mr. Hawks a question? Mr. Hawks? What time period would you say, if the bids come in promptly, when would demolition begin, and when would be the anticipated date it would end?
I'll refer to Mr. Davis from
Oh, I didn't see him back there, I'm sorry.
We expect bids back June 4th. Shortly after that, we'll do an analysis, a couple weeks. To answer your question, abatement will be first. That'll take about 8 weeks. So abatement will not be done probably till the end of September, beginning September, middle September, somewhere in that area. And then we would do demolition that would continue through till the schedule says Thanksgiving.
Okay, thank you.
And what we're gonna try to do is keep the trees up between buildings to try to minimize the noise and the dust, but get as much down as fast as we can.
Okay. I know that at one time it was hoped to get as much of the dust type demolition done before the beginning of school because of Toni Morrison's proximity to the.
We'll have water trucks on site. We'll try to keep it down. There will be some, but we'll keep it to a minimum.
the fact that it's gonna be done in the wintertime too would help quite a bit, yeah.
Thank you. Vote, please. Roll call.
Items 16 and 17, Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Other matters, item 18, consider approval of continued membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association so we can participate in tournaments in the state of Ohio. Item 19, approval of National Teacher Appreciation Week. I know it was last week, but we still want to have that there. And item 20, consider approval of adoption of National Nurses Week for this year. So I ask for approval. Other matters D, items 18, 19, and 20.
Motion to approve.
Support motion.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
That's my recommendations.
Thank you very much, sir. I do have one question going backwards, gentlemen, if you would indulge me, please. Mr. Weber, the first motion, item 1, I remember we discussed this. Is this the piece where they look at our Medicaid expenditure and go to?
Go ahead.
Yeah. What this is a lot of services that we provide for children, especially for psychologists. That has been Medicaid reimbursable for a number of years. This district has not taken advantage of that to the extent that they could have. So we hired a consulting firm, which we did earlier on this year, because a lot of it is paperwork to assist with that. We've been doing that this year, and I can't remember how much we brought in already. Do you know?
It's at least 30,000.
Yeah, already we've recouped that, and it will increase as we get better with that. Many districts have done that, so we took a real aggressive stance when I came on board to make sure that we could go after that. That's money that's just sitting there that can be reimbursable for us.
In item 1, we have to be audited for requirements. Right. Hence, item 1 has to be in the agenda. It costs about $2,000 a year. There's a big plus there when you're done.
Okay, I just want to get so that people can clearly hear exactly what we were
Because it could
talking
be
about.
potentially 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
So we spend $2,200 to get approximately $100,000
or more.
Yes, or more.
That's a great return on investment.
I
Absolutely.
believe back when Mr. Hutlock was superintendent, we had a wonderful arrangement with the Lorain Health Department in this area, and unfortunately the following superintendent killed it. They were also our medical advisors. Do we presently have a doctor?
Yes, this is different. This is for special needs services that are provided.
Okay.
It used to be Medicaid, and I'm not sure when the dates changed because I wasn't involved in it at the time, but it went to, I believe, CAF funds, and there was a whole lot of other issues. They just made that allowable expense 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, but this is for special needs services.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we can go on to new business, and we've spent some considerable time, so there are 2 items that we'll bring up for very brief discussion because we'll get to these at the next meeting. One thing is, and I spoke with Mr. Tucker about this briefly, this will be a board responsibility, and maybe we can form some kind of a committee. In terms of an idea towards addressing significant donors, we just received a huge donation from the Goodman family. And as we're moving forward with this high school project, there are potential high-dollar donors out there. And there might be some kind of schedule where certain things can be named, be it a hallway, a classroom, a plaque, bricks, I don't know. But that's something the board really needs to discuss so that as we move forward, we might even be able to create some kind of a solicitation campaign. A lot of these things that we need some extra money for, that we might be able to do that. And of course, we want it designed so that the district has the flexibility, but only for the building project. So folks know that these things that they're donating towards are not going towards any overhead expense. This is about the building. But I think that'd be a very reasonable thing to do, so that we've kind of established at least a template, and we're not making these decisions off the cuff. Someone donates, they get this. Well, somebody donates more, they get that. We need to kind of define these things before we start in that process so we can be consistent and fair. And again, so I think that's something that I'm sure you gentlemen have probably thought about before. And I'm sure there's some examples out there. This isn't like, new. So maybe we can get some maybe examples of what other districts have done or other companies have done in building these projects. Any comments about that?
Well, just a year or so ago, I posed the question to the architects. And another advantage with TDA is they have worked with districts who have done this, and I think we could probably benefit from their input. And I have mentioned it also to Mr. Tucker. One of the things we could consider is working with the Community Foundation, because major donors are more inclined to give if they know that their gift is going to be a forever gift. And for instance, what did Elyria do? Elyria got a major gift from Mr. Mel Mixon. I don't know what the amount of that gift was, but I believe they named their auditorium. So we could go to a major donor, and for $1 million or $2 million, I'd be glad to, consider naming somebody, put somebody's name on it. And companies like that, they can write it off. And so, yeah, I agree with you 100%. We need to look into that, and I would use the architects, at least get input from them.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. We don't want to put any additional burden on the facilities committee. Might be a natural place, but again, we'll interact with the architect and some board members and figure that out. The other thing along that line is, over the last decade with the new buildings, we've had opportunity to change some names to identify some local people, which I think was real significant and meaningful. Again, the high school is going to be the last project. If there's any names of significant individuals that we would like to see in any capacity, we need to start to have that conversation now and figure out if there's any way that we, process that. I know I've had people mention things to me about naming something after this or that, and we don't say yes, we don't say no. We need to create some kind of a policy format by which we can make those decisions so they're not so arbitrary.
Well, you're not talking about naming the building.
No, not the building.
There is a policy for that.
Yeah, we know, yes, this isn't the building, but there's a lot within the building. And so
it relates to what you were just discussing. That's where you can go out and get money and name the auto shop after somebody. Is that what you're thinking
right.
about?
Well, some are money, some are based on legacy, some are based on contributions to our city or to our school district. There's two pieces. There's, of course, the donor side of it, but then there's the other opportunity that if we want to acknowledge someone's accomplishment, that's significant. So those are just thoughts. Mr. Tucker, any comment on that? No, I wouldn't touch it. Slippery slopes, huh? Thank you. The other thing that is going to come up, and we're going to wait, we discussed this briefly with the Academic Distress Commission, and that relates to our protocol for communication interaction with them. There's still some discussion going on. They're going to take the lead on this in helping to define. We as a board will have a vote collectively in which we define our protocol. It won't be what Tim said. It'll be based on a vote of the board. But we want to define a discipline in a way that we can get the information that we need, that we have an efficient, timely exchange of information.
Under the statute, what I had the conversation with Dr. Zelli was that it says the school board will give input to the plan, so there will need to be a mechanism for that, and they'll discuss that at the meeting on Monday, May 20th.
So once they have their discussion, they will then come back with, we will create some kind of a joint scenario, and then so we need to be thinking about that, and we need to be thinking about the value of the information, thinking about the timeliness of the information, and the consistency. Those are three characteristics that I think would satisfy most board members. And then we need to define what the discipline and protocol is, so that we can best do our job. I think it's very important. We have not been displaced. We have not been removed. And we are in a partnership, but it's going to be really important that we kind of establish that communication. I think Mr. Tucker even indicated that initially they were going to be meeting once a month, but there's going to probably be a need for them to meet more frequently early on to get a lot of these pieces rolling along. So we also will, just so you know, in my discussion with them is the expectation that they would provide communication representing them via letter, via one of their commission members. So what we won't have is we won't have one of us giving a report on the Academic Distress Commission. They will issue their own report to the board in terms of how they're meeting, what other things are going on. So for anybody out there, if you want information on the Academic Distress Commission, you need to inquire to them for that. And so we want to keep these things addressed early on. And I think that'll help Mr. Tucker, who's doing serious double duty. His staff has been preparing for a commission meeting coming up on the 20th, our meeting, running the district. So there's a whole lot, and we want to make sure that they're able to be efficient in their process. Comments from you, sir?
The only thing I want to say is the discussions I've had is we're about ready to go live with our new website, which has been delayed a number of times for a whole lot of reasons. But there will be a tab on that for the commission, is what we've talked about. So and the minutes and all that will be just as readily available. Now it's their decision, but those are the preliminary discussions that they have had.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions, gentlemen? Comments? Thank you. We can move on to community reports and requests from board members.
I've got some. First of all, we have a policy meeting Thursday, May 23rd, 1 o'clock, right here, room 33. Second, I went to the Booster Club meeting for the athletic committee. And what happened, and I'll make this brief, each sport gave a little synopsis of how their season was going. And track and baseball are doing really good. Athletic boosters are awaiting word if any other sports will be brought back by the board and the superintendent for the 2014 season, and I told him that Mr. Tucker would let him know. Booster Club is also taking advertisements for the yearly sports program, the upcoming 2014, and if anybody's interested in advertising in there, please contact Mr. Brian Corey here at Charleston Center. Thank you.
And just for the record, that was a Booster Club meeting that was not a athletic committee meeting. So to be very clear, the athletic committee is a committee of the board. The Booster Club is not. I believe it has its own charter, it has its own business. So Bill was in attendance at that meeting, but that was not, and because I heard him say the two in there, so I wanted to make sure there was some clarity and reasonable distance, that was a Booster Club meeting.
I got invited, so I went.
Thank you.
I have a request for information. I was told, going to get back to me, Mr. Weber, and what reminded me of it is Mr. Sturgill mentioning the Booster Club regarding what organizations like that have to file with the Attorney General. Have you looked into any of that yet or not?
I thought your question was policy for booster clubs and our policies.
No, what my question was whether any of our booster clubs would fall under the Ohio Attorney General's, something about any club that ends up with $25,000 or more in their treasury has to file as some sort of a special organization. It was in the packet. It was in the OSBA thing, yeah.
It was new legislation.
New legislation. So how many booster clubs do we have, or that type of organ? It would be like
I don't know.
It would be any organization that the school board has no control over money.
That we don't have any control over.
Yeah,
that
so
money.
those are
Right.
the ones that have to file.
Okay, so
Am I
you're
right, Mr. Tucker?
That's the way I understand the legislation. The only two I know of is banned in the athletics. The only two I know of, and they were both 501c3s, which is puts them in a whole nother light.
Right.
And if they are, I'm sure they've been notified of that.
Okay, well, if they are a 501c3, that's a whole different, as you said. Yeah. Okay.
I can check on that, but we have
I
no
do have
control
one
over
question.
those organizations as far as their operations.
I do have one question. Has anything been done on the Business Advisory Council to this date?
What I have done on everything is put it all on hold until I get my marching orders from the Academic Distress Commission on Monday. I mean, we've got a contract set with OSBA to start our strategic plan, which was done in March. We've got a whole lot of things all ready to go, but what I wanted to do is make sure, and I'm sure they'll be fine with it, but I don't want to start something and then have to change directions.
Well, the advisory committee is a requirement of the Ohio Revised Code, so
That's correct.
That has nothing to do with the And that would be Mr. Williams, not, I believe that's a board committee,
No, that one's a superintendent's committee, I believe.
not the business advisory committee, no.
Actually, what I wanted to do is be careful because I didn't want to hit people up for strategic plan and the business advisory, and wanted to have a choice on that. But that, we will be doing that.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I
We
knew that
we haven't had one here in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
I knew that
Yeah.
we talked about it, and I just wanted to know if anything was, if anything was going on it. I mean, I know how much you have your hands full.
Just, it is interesting doing my secretary's now doing 2 agendas. These board agendas, while they look easy, are very extremely cumbersome, which you all know, because you've all been there. Well, now we're doing she is doing the commission, and that's done on telephone long distance. So it's with the state of Ohio.
Again,
so
though,
it's
the
busy.
law does require, the only committee required by the Ohio Revised Code for a school board is the Business Advisory Committee. Doesn't require the committee to meet, which was the problem the last time.
Yeah, there was another
But
committee also, the Family Children's First or whatever that committee is.
Yeah,
They rolled them together. They put them together.
So anyway, that's.
Any other questions or requests? I think that would, I guess we have a second hearing of the public. Any takers?
Good evening, gentlemen. Brian Reinhardt, 2929 Meister Road here in Lorain. I've got 3 things I'd like to hit on real quick. Number 1, that goes to the building, the people that are building the high school. We have buildings in this city, brand new buildings, where their roofs leak before the first student walked through the front door. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And I understand that there was a design issue with that. I've discussed that with a couple of board members, so that definitely needs to be addressed. And the only reason why I bring that up is because the question was brought up about radon gas. Lorain County is a level 2 radon area, and for the gentleman to say that putting a layer of soil over the soil that's existing at the Admiral King site is a method of mitigating radon gas, that's absolutely untrue. That's the only way to mitigate properly radon gas is either overpressurization in the building or a ventilation system up underneath the building that moves the air that's coming up through the ground away from the building. It's vented up above the building. It doesn't enter the building. So that's the only reason I brought up the roofs up, because if we can't get radon gas right, then we need to make sure that these people are doing what we're paying them to do. And lastly, gentleman, Mr. Tucker, since 1971, the United States Department of Education National Center for Education Statistics has been tracking reading and math scores as a country through the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP. On a scale of 1 to 500, in 1971, we stood as a nation at a score level of 285 for 17-year-olds, 255 for 13-year-olds, and 208 for 9-year-olds. We are now at 286 for 17-year-olds, which is only 1 point up. We are at 260 for 13-year-olds, which is just a slight difference, and 220 for 9-year-olds, which is a 12-point increase. Over the past 42 years, we've gone up and down in scores, never by more than 12 assessment points in a 500-point scale. An average of 6 points increase over those same 42 years indicates that not much has changed in reading, no matter what reading program we use or don't use. Our proficiency test scores have also indicated for over a decade that we, just like any other urban school district, we have issues with reading no matter what reading program we use or don't use. Gentlemen, we do not have a reading problem. We have a participation in reading problem, and that problem is in the home. I hear every day at Toni Morrison School, they announce which classroom has 100% SFA homework for that day. On most days, there's only 1 or 2 classrooms that have 100%. On many days, there's no classroom that has 100%. Mr. Tucker, when you were applying for this job, and I've said this to you before, when you were being considered for the position of superintendent, one of the things that the Morning Journal said about you was your ability to connect with the parents in Sandusky. You did certain things. It was mentioned with the NAACP, reaching out to churches. Let's try, we need to focus on that connection, because no matter what we do, as far as whatever reading program, if we change or keep it the same, no matter what we do, if we don't have the inclusion of the parents, and I'm not talking about getting parents in the buildings, I'm talking about at least getting parents involved in their kids' education. And we have got to figure out some way with this board, with the superintendent, with somebody, a way to get the people, the parents in Lorain, reconnected with teaching. And please, you did it in Sandusky. If you've got a rabbit in that hat, I wish that you would pull it out.
I will say this, Mr. Reinhardt came in and met with me. He's got some terrific ideas, and I'm trying to work with him, and I'm working with him. The problem I'm running into right now is I'm doing double duty, and Sandusky was not quite in the situation that Lorain found itself. We were well funded, but you are 100% right on that in connecting with parents. I agree with that 100%, and that is a big gap that we need to fill.
Are the board members' telephone numbers and email addresses included in the new Lorain City Schools website?
I don't know about the phone numbers. That would be their choice to tell me, but the emails would be. My email is and all of my folks are.
I'm in the phone book.
Give you my card with my cell number on it.
But we are an electronic society. I sit down at the computer, I have an issue, I go to the school website, I look up the policy letter, and I want to talk to somebody about it. Give me an email address that's easily accessible that I can shoot you an email, and let's make it at least appear from your guys' side that you're reaching out to us. So make a good faith effort towards us, so maybe people will start reaching back. Anything that we can try to reconnect the people in the district, I'm begging you.
On the website also, this is a work in progress, so please give us feedback. Hey, we'd like this, we'd like this. I mean, we think we know what everybody wants, and they've told us, but as we go through and do this, say, hey, this would be easier here, this would be easier there, because it's going to be a lot more user-friendly, but the more comments we get, the cleaner it can be.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mark, I believe you look like you.
On the new website, when you search for a board member or a staff member, it brings up a link. It will automatically take you to their email. If you have email on your computer, it automatically launches into your email program so that you can email directly to any of the staff members that are in
On the new website?
Yes.
Okay, because I was going to say that.
There is a section there there's going to be a section on there for comments so that the public, the community, the board members, the parents, the faculty and staff can make comments on what they want to see when the new website comes up. It is a lot cleaner, it's a lot easier to find things, but it's what a group of 15 or 20 people have thought is what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have 1,500 people that look at it, that will help us guide what we're going to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Paul Bieber, 212 East 29th Street. Just a comment about the building, the high school. Looks like we're going to get a decent building out of it, but what I sense has been lost over the course of the 6 years since we had the meeting is a real sense of community involvement in the building. We had talked about maybe perhaps having running track with access for the public to the facility, etc. No mention of that. We talked about some other things with the Hall of Fame and the Black River Historical. Looks like we're going to get that, but in a token amount. I know these all may be additional costs, but if you can figure it out, I'd like to encourage the board to try to consider to do those things. This is an $80 million project, and it seems to me we ought to be able to find a way to do some of those sorts of things that makes the community more part of the project than it appears it's going to be. It looks to me like most of the decisions are going to be have been made, and we're going to get more or less what the construction people want to build as opposed to necessarily what we exactly want. So that's my comment. Give it some consideration if you can.
Thank you. Our next board meeting will be
May
Tuesday, May 28th,
6:30 p.m. here at Charleston, room 33. Thank you all for your attendance and indulgence.
Mr. Williams, you want to move that board meeting in June?
We'll do that on another.
Do it 28th, you want to do that? Okay, we'll move it later, okay.
Yeah, we'll move it later. Yeah, we'll just.
Yeah, you can do that, sure.
Okay.
If no other comments, may I have a motion for adjournment, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
No.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools, TV 20 WLCS.
To purchase a high-quality copy of the program you just viewed, please call Lorain City Schools Television at 282-8400.